and we'd love to see your faces. So if you want to turn your camera on, that's great. If you don't, we understand that as well. Okay, so speaking of nerd grilled cheese facts, I'll hit you with a few before we hear from Chrissy. So in 2004, an online casino, Golden Palace, paid $28,000 for a half-eaten grilled cheese with the likeness of the Virgin Mary depicted in the burn pattern. The world record for eating grilled cheese is 47 sandwiches in 10 minutes. Between the 20s and the 70s, the sandwich was called the cheese dream. And it wasn't until the 60s that the second piece of bread was even added to make a true sandwich. So there you go. So you guys can share that knowledge, you know, with your teams and your families, because I'm sure everybody else would like to nerd on that as well. Anyway, enough about that. So today our featured presenter is Chrissy Carlson, who is a resource and service navigator at Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. She's going to share some updates and resources available through the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. So Chrissy, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. So in advance, I want to apologize if I have to stop and take a sip. I've been fighting the crud. So of course, when you have to speak, that's when that sort of thing happens. So I figured today what I would do is kind of go over a general overview of our program to increase the knowledge of kind of what we do, and then also just kind of take you through what a client would experience when they come to navigation. That way, if you're making referrals to navigation, you're comfortable with the process and you have an idea of what the client will experience, and then you can help them prepare for that experience as well. I do have a few very basic slides that I can share a screen. So when we go through this, you'll see the same forms that we use when we sit down and do assessments with clients.
Go ahead and give it a try, Chrissy. You should be able to share. If not, I will make you host, but that'll mess up the recording.
Okay, now hopefully.
Down at the bottom, is there a share screen?
And all right, do you guys see something that says navigation?
Yep.
All right, we're good to go. Okay, so with navigation, our primary purpose is to end the destitution or the risk of destitution to children. Our strategy is case management that consists of budgeting, financial planning, planning for future stability, and referrals to community resources for financial and non-financial needs. Our mission is to stabilize families so they can independently provide basic needs for their children they're caring for, such as shelter, heat, food, safety. And then this next slide, this is just an example of one of our flyers, which I will send to Chris to share. I think I've shared them before, but just in case. With navigation, we have 3 funding types. All of our funding must be tied to the well-being of children. But we do offer case management only services to individuals or families that do not have children. Navigation is a last payer. So before funding is approved, we look first at what the family can contribute, then what help is available to them through family and friends outside of their household, and then what community resources are available. We have 3 funding types that we use when we're helping families. Our first funding type, and what we use most frequently, is emergency assistance funding. Typically, emergency assistance funding is used for, but not limited to, rent, mortgage, utilities, and transportation. We cannot use emergency assistance to purchase a vehicle or any type of shelter like a camper or RV, or to pay auto insurance. Although there are some instances in which we can help with car payments or camper or RV payments. We just can't purchase them. Emergency assistance is not an ongoing funding, and clients must be sustainable going forward to be eligible. Families must be below the 200% federal poverty guideline to be eligible. However, there are limited exceptions in which they can be above 200% if the circumstances were beyond their control, such as a major injury or sudden illness. Income verification is required, and we can only pay what the client does not have the ability to pay. If a client receives emergency assistance funding, they cannot receive funding again for 1 year. So we've had a bit of a, one thing I want to touch on, there's been a shift. Wages have increased drastically. However, as you all know, have not kept up with cost of living increase. So, you know, previously it was rare that we would have somebody that was over the 200% poverty guidelines. However, that's becoming more common. And one of the things that's taken into consideration is, you know, if a family gets a 30-day notice and they have to move because the homeowner is selling the home or whatever that scenario is, and you know they're facing move-in costs of $5,000 or $6,000 somewhere, you know, that's something that we would consider outside of their circle of control. So we've been able to expand that a little bit to try to keep up with what's going on in the economy. Career enhancement funding, it can be used in many different ways to help families with children to obtain or maintain employment. We can purchase tools, we can make car payments, buy tires, pay for car repairs, provide a voucher to purchase work-specific clothing, and many other things. We cannot use this funding, again, to purchase a vehicle or any type of shelter, camper, or RV. This is not an ongoing assistance, and the client must be able to demonstrate they can maintain their expenses going forward to be eligible for funding. Again, families must be below the 200% federal poverty guideline to be eligible, but a non-custodial parent who is paying child support can earn up to 400% of the federal poverty guideline. There are no exceptions to the income for career enhancement. So we don't have any wiggle room on those federal poverty guidelines on this specific funding type. Income verification is required, and we can only pay what the client does not have the ability to pay. If the client receives career enhancement funding, they cannot receive funding again for a period of 1 year. Our third funding source is Casey funds. So this is a private funding, and we have so much more flexibility with this funding and how we're able to utilize it. However, this funding can only be used for kinship families. So families who are raising children or youth that are not theirs. This could be a grandparent, an aunt, uncle, sibling, or an unrelated person with a close connection to the child. We can use these funds to buy items needed for school, to help with sports fees, extracurricular activities, clothing, and many other needs the family may experience. Citizenship is not required to receive Casey funds, and there is no sustainability requirement or income limit for this funding. However, this funding is limited. It's a much smaller pool of funding. So we do prioritize our payments based on financial need. Okay, so how to refer a client to navigation and what happens once the client is referred. All of our referrals go through a centralized process by dialing the Idaho Care Line. However, a community partners can also refer to us directly. We have a form for that, which I'll share so Chris can share, and I'll touch on that a little bit as we move forward here. Once the referral is received, it is assigned to the next available navigator in that geographical area. And we don't take direct referrals directly to a navigator just because, you know, we respond to the referrals based on availability, and that allows us to keep our timelines short. And that way, you know, somebody doesn't get a referral that's in an email or a voicemail and that person is out on vacation. We want to make sure that they come into our centralized so they can be assigned. The navigator Once the referral is received, the navigator will make contact with the referral within 2 business days. And during that call, they make an initial screening in which they discuss the circumstances and the reason for the referral. The navigator then provides information to the referent on the parameters of the program. And if they choose to proceed, we schedule an appointment for an interview and an assessment. The assessment typically takes an hour to an hour and a half, and the client may be asked to provide requested verification prior to scheduling an assessment and must provide any verification required to be approved for funding. Primarily, since COVID, we switched to a model in which we do most of our interviews by phone. However, we offer in-person appointments if that's the client's preference. It rarely is. It's just much more convenient. Clients really appreciate that they can just do it over the phone. They don't have to rush from work or get daycare. And so we found that it actually works a lot better that way. During the assessment, we use this tool. It's called an Echo Map. And we discuss their family and their household composition, housing and utilities, employment, their assets, taxes or tax refund they may have received, supports within community, family and friends, and then medical. When we discuss medical, it's typically, are you insured? Do you have adequate care? We discuss development, education, vocation, daycare, legal, probation, parole, and transportation. The only reason that we discuss legal, we don't care about criminal background. Somebody can be actively on probation or parole. That does not impact the eligibility. The only thing that would impact the eligibility is if they were non-compliant. Then their household is still eligible. We just do not count them as a member of the household. We don't count their income, and we don't count them toward federal poverty guidelines, because obviously if they're not in compliance, they're probably not going to be in that household for very long. So we work our plan around who will be in that household. There is one caveat. We cannot help fleeing felons. So if it's a fleeing felon, that's the only kind of black and white ineligibility. During this assessment, then after we gather all of this information, then we move into their financial information. And we discuss all of their income and their expenses in detail. And the purpose of this is we want to make sure that, one, we kind of see what happened and how they got in the situation that they are. And we do the historical column also, so we can take a look at, let's look at the last 30 days. What have you spent on groceries? What have you spent on? What are areas that maybe we could work on improving? And then the projected column, that's where we show that sustainability piece. Once all the assessments are completed and the verification is received, then the case is reviewed for funding. If the client is not sustainable, funding cannot be approved, but the client can work the plan created during their assessment to become sustainable. This could be something like reducing an expense such as a cell phone bill, or finding a better paying job, employment, increasing the number of hours they're working, donating plasma. We get pretty creative to try to help people get to that place. And we've seen a shift to typically we could, it was a fairly cut and dry, and the majority of the folks that were not sustainable was due to underemployment. However, that's no longer the case. With the cost of living increase, we're finding people are working full time, they're earning decent wages and still not able to maintain their expenses. So we really, dive in and look with them on ways to get creative to try to get them to a place where they are sustainable. Navigation utilizes available funding for long-term solutions that provide for the well-being of the child. We do not issue hotel or gas vouchers unless they are included in the plan as a bridge to a long-term solution. The exception to this would be Casey funding. For example, if the client is approved for housing and is approved for emergency assistance funding to help with the deposit, but will be homeless for 2 weeks until the apartment is available, we may be able to utilize additional funding for short-term hotel stay until their apartment is ready. We have a 30-day assessment period, and following the completion of assessments, 30 days from the date the client signs the applications, we are able to address additional needs during that time if they come up. For example, if we're able to help the family with the deposit for housing, but during that 30-day assessment period, their vehicle gets a flat tire. If they are using that vehicle to get to and from work, we would be able to assist with the tire repair. As part of the assessment process during this, we are also creating goals. So we have our goals that our initial goals, and that could be, getting the required documentation back, income verification, that sort of thing. And then the ongoing goals are, okay, we're in a good place. How do we maintain that and improve on your financial future? We use the information from the EcoMap and then also the budget to help guide and create this sustainability plan. All of our payments are paid directly to a vendor. We don't make any payments directly to a client. There is a common misconception that we encounter with navigation, and that's the belief that navigation functions as a housing placement agency. We do not have any housing under our authority, and we are not able to influence housing approvals. We are federally funded, so we have to allow that that vendor to make that decision. So the decision to rent to the client lies solely with the landlord. We don't routinely complete all of the client's housing search calls or act as a placement agent for their housing searches, but we can provide them with limited help with vacancy inquiry calls and with communication between the client and the landlord when needed, such as emailing a pay stub or other supporting documents for their application for housing. We do love to hear of housing openings though. So if you have, or of openings, pass it on to us, because that's something we can share with our clients and save them some time and some legwork. And again, we do contact any vendor that we pay, and all of our payments are made directly to the vendor. And then this next slide here, this is just an example of, we do take direct referrals from community partners. However, they are sent to, there's an email on the bottom of the form, and that email goes into a queue that that multiple people see, that, and that's where that referral is assigned. So once that is received, when we receive direct referrals, we really like to have contact with the community partner. It's not required, but there may be information and insight that you may have that might help us move the case along and build on that family's strengths. And if they've already tried 500 things, that you've already been on that journey with them, it saves them from having that repetition during a time when they're already struggling. So, and I will send this out to Chris to share with everybody. And that's navigation in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Chrissy?
Hi, Chrissy. My name's Greta Gissel, and I work with Connect Kootenai. And I'm asking on a personal note, but I have a gal that I know is looking for a rental. She needs a place the next couple of weeks. I don't think she really has a whole lot of bandwidth to try to figure things out. And I was wondering if you had a quick resource I could send her that where someone might be able to help her find a rental, or if anyone else on the call knows of how to help people find rentals in the area.
We do have some housing lists and resources. And typically we kind of tease that out a bit to figure out, you know, what their income looks like. Because we don't want to send them out into basically the private market rent. If they're earning, you know, $15 an hour and they're a single income household, they're not going to be in a position to be able to pay $2,000 a month for rent typically. So those are referrals that we like to get because we can help tease them out. And then we have the Idaho housing list that we share. And our Idaho housing up here is awesome and phenomenal, and they keep that list updated. So that's a tool that we use fairly frequently. And there's also a website, housingidaho.com, that we can send them to. And again, it kind of depends on their income level, what kind of where we would steer that. So.
Okay, thank you for your help. I appreciate it.
Greta, I have the housing subcommittee of the Region 1 Behavioral Health Board. That my committee put together a housing resource list. Like we went to all the different resources and categorized them by type of housing and stuff. I'll send you the link to that. It's a living document. It's a Google Doc.
Awesome, thanks.
Other questions for Chrissy?
Yeah, I have a question, Christy. Great presentation. Thank you very much. Marty Matney with Workforce Development. So how does someone access this program? Is it all self-referral, or, you know, how do people find out about this?
So it's both. If they want a referral to navigation, they can self-refer by dialing the Idaho Care Line, and that's just 211, like 911, but 211. And then they'll talk to that 211 agent, and they can ask for a referral to navigation. The 211 agent will ask, you know, some initial, very kind of broad questions. But with those questions, the agent may also be able to give them some resources right there on the spot as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chrissy?
Hi, this is
Excellent.
Jackie from the Commission for the Blind. I'm sorry, I had a really quick question.
You're
I guess
fine.
I'm
Yeah, go
wondering,
ahead.
ballpark, and I know this changes constantly, but as of today, do you have any idea what the 200% of poverty guidelines, what that number looks like?
Actually, I can tell you that. So it's it changes with household size, but I can.
Gotcha. Let's just go family of 4, just
Okay,
to give me a general idea.
Family of 4, 200% is $4,625.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can share this screen real quick. This is what we look at, and you know, this is available. You can Google and find it. But I can also share it with Chris if it's something that you're all interested in having. And it's updated, I think, twice a year, maybe in October.
Yeah, sounds like some people would love to get their hands on this. So Chris, if you want to send it my way, when you send me the other items, I'll add it to the follow-up
Okay.
to this meeting. Has anybody experienced or had, you know, somebody that they helped that experienced using 211 or the health care or health navigation services? Can Anybody speak to a real life example here?
Hi, it's Angela again. I'm at a Community Resource and Vision Center here in Sandpoint. And I actually do refer you guys quite often when there's a family that needs help with rentals and housing. And so far, it seems like it's been a good referral for the ones that I've referred to, and they've been able to receive help. So thank you.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts on this topic or questions for Chrissy? Okay. Thank you, Chrissy, for being our featured presenter for this morning and the information and walking us through the process. And again, we'll share the things that Chrissy went over today in a follow-up. So let's switch gears and do our virtual roundtable. And again, that is, we're looking for, an update on your agency, maybe resources that you want to share or highlight, challenges, wins, or even a pro tip today. So no real order here, just whoever wants to go first, and we'll get around the virtual roundtable.
I'm gonna,
So with Family Promise, we are having our Cinco de Mayo celebration on May 5th. Tickets are on sale on our website. Also in June, we have our golf tournament coming up. That's also available on our website. We've had a couple good wins. We had a family graduate that has been with us for quite a while, and that was exciting. And then next week, we're having a baby born in the program. So exciting things happening at Family Promise.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. Sorry, Mark, you'll go next.
yeah, I was just going to share a little update on the Alice project, and it also pertains to this meeting. So the new report will be coming out in a couple of weeks, and there will be a national launch on to the media on April 26th. And we'll do a regional and statewide launch on that day as well. So I'll send information on that. It's going to be a Zoom presentation where the media is invited and possibly legislators. It will be recorded. So once that's done, I can share a recording to the group if you're interested in seeing it. But once we have the released version of the report, I'll make sure that I get it to Chris so he can send it out to everybody on this list so you can see the updated data. And then for the next Alice Task Force meeting, just as a heads up, there might be a different Zoom link. We will have some guests. That is on May 11th, and that happens to coincide with United Ways of the Pacific Northwest Conference in Spokane. The Alice report was made possible because of the partnership with the United Ways of the Pacific Northwest, and the other United Ways in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho have heard about this Alice Task Force, and it's been running since 2016 by a few different names. And so there's a lot of interest and intrigue on how we've done this. We've had a few subcommittees that have spun off of this, and it's had some successes, and some other people would just like to hear about it and see about it. So the next meeting will invite other United Way leaders from the Pacific Northwest just to see the meeting. We'll cover a little bit about the report, but just as a heads up, we'll have a lot more guests, hopefully, and maybe not quite as much time to share, but we'll definitely have some good follow-up and encourage people to post things in the chat as we do the meeting. And then Chris may have a lengthy follow-up email after next one if people want to give updates and reports. One of our board members is Olivia Metz, who many of you know, but she's also on the regional research committee that helps develop the Alice report. So there's a national research committee and then a local research advisory committee, and she's part of that. So should be pretty interesting. And I think it's great that people are interested in seeing how we gather the resources and connect resources together and share it out with the community. So I think that was the big update that I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's great. And when that information is circulated, our ask would be that you would circulate that to your center of influence or those that you work with. Is the more people hearing that information, the better. So thanks, Mark, for that update. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Thanks, Donna.
So St. Vincent's is looking at, well, we're jumping through all the hoops right now to get approval to try to build a 30-unit mixed-use building in Post Falls where the old thrift store is, excuse me. And it would be the new thrift store on the bottom level and then 2 floors of housing. We had an open house last week, or I don't know, a couple of weeks ago now, it's kind of blurry. Thank you, everybody that attended. We went to planning and zoning last night and got through planning and zoning. So the next step is the city council meeting for approval because the property does have to be rezoned for mixed use. So that's in the works and that's pretty exciting. We're hoping we're going to call it the John Bruning Commons. If it does get approved, and honor Mr. Bruning, who's been a volunteer in this community for probably the last, 40 years at least. Other things going on May 1st at First Pres Church. The church and NAMI are going to hold a joint mental health awareness kickoff event. And the ED from NAMI Idaho will be coming up and doing a presentation on anti-stigma. That'll be followed by a panel discussion with people whose lives have been impacted in one way or another by mental health issues. That'll include Judge Mitchell from Mental Health Court, a therapist who Dean, I always say his name wrong, Clavison, who used to work at Heritage. He now has his own counseling company. A person whose child tried to commit suicide last year, and a person with lived experience who did not even know she had a mental health issue for like the first 20 years of her life because of the stigma that was attached to it and her family never talking about it. So she went undiagnosed until adulthood. So that's May 1st. It'll be at 5:30 at First Pres in the big hall there. And then on May 23rd, we will be having a poverty simulation. And that's also going to be at First Pres because they have a huge room. They have a gym that they can do this in. And we're working with St. Vincent's and CAP and the church to put on this poverty simulation. So we are in need of people to be pretend vendors. If you've never been to a poverty simulation, it's a kind of everybody tells me it's life changing. To get the perspective of what it's really like to navigate, no offense, Christy, but to navigate the social services system and what kind of things life throws at you. And when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you get that one thing, the car breaks or you blow a tire, and then you have to get into this system and ask for help. It's very eye-opening. And part of what the vendors do is they pretend like they work for, health and welfare, where you have to go and get on food stamps, or you have to like get to the food bank so that you can feed your kids at night, or your electricity's due and you don't make the cutoff point, so they turn the lights off in the room to demonstrate, like what kind of things happen to people that live on the edge. So please contact myself or Kaylin Rowe at Community Action Partnership, and I'll put her email and my email in the chat box because we need some vendors signed up. It's not until May 23rd, so you've got a little bit of time. And that's all I got.
And then I have a flyer that I'll send out as well that goes over the poverty simulation that I'll send out with the other updates. Who's next?
I'll share. So Michaela with Early Head Start. Things have been going pretty well here. We've just been doing lots of different things with our families and doing lots of socializations and play groups. We are working towards moving into a different center in Sandpoint, and we are looking at hopefully getting a center in Shoshone County as well. So that'll be really exciting if we can make that all come to fruition. And we do have a couple of family events coming up. So if you have any families with littles, we are doing 2 blossom bashes where they'll be planting flowers. We'll have an art activity, we'll have snacks. we are going to do a story time, a book giveaway, and a drawing. And we are doing one April 25th in Shoshone County at the Head Start Center there from 5 to 6:30. And then one May 10th at the Harding Center here in Coeur d'Alene, and that one will be from 10 to 11:30. And I will send Chris a flyer for that. So if you have anyone that would be interested, feel free to pop in. If you want to come and set up a booth to share about your services, you can contact me for that too, and we'd be happy to try to accommodate that.
Awesome. Thanks, Michaela.
Thanks.
Hi, I'll go next. Again,
you.
I'm Jackie from the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I don't know if anybody has any familiarity with what we do, so I'll just be very brief, but we are a state agency. We provide several different programs for people who are blind or visually impaired. I myself am a vocational rehabilitation counselor, so if anybody's familiar with VR, we're sort of their stepsister. We do just exactly what they do, but only for blind and visually impaired people. We also do have a program called Sight Restoration, which I think will probably be the most relevant for this group. We can do sight-saving surgeries. So if people have cataracts that they can't afford to have removed, we have a program where we can bring them in, do some eligibility paperwork, and then we can pay up to $5,000 for bilateral cataract surgery. They can have insurance even if they have a financial difficulty of just paying the premiums, we can also help with that. So just to keep that in mind. Something that's coming up that isn't my agency, but that I'm kind of on the board for, North Idaho College next Wednesday, April 19th, is doing their 4th annual Global Access Awareness Day fair. So it's all about accessibility and disability awareness. And that is in the upstairs at the Student Union building from 10 until 2. It's a really, really cool event. We have some great giveaways, including a PS5. So if you're interested in just learning more about disability access and accessing the community, I would really encourage that you come and check it out. It's free, obviously, and parking is actually free on campus that day because of the open fair. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat box.
Thanks,
And what day
Jackie.
was that again?
April 19th from 10 till 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Somebody has an update.
I will go ahead. I'm with North Idaho College Head Start, and Monday, April 24th from 3:30 to 5:30 is our Strengthening Families event. So we'll be here at our building and in the library, and we'll just have resources and family activities. So just a fun night.
Thanks, Susan.
Hi, this is Keeler from the Idaho Department of Labor, and I just want to let everyone remind them that we have our largest job fair in North Idaho next week at Real Life Ministries. We have 65 employers signed up, 10 in the waiting. We could have done more. We have the word out to get as many people there to get hired. So we're just asking for you to direct people there, bring their resume, dress for an interview, and we're hoping to get a lot of people hired there. And I really want to shout out to Real Life Ministries. They're amazing. So next Wednesday, and it's from 10 to 1.
Thanks, Keeler. Any other updates? Shares, challenges? There's a challenge in the chat here. Maybe we'll throw that out. Lisa has, does anyone know there's a place that can help a single disabled person purchase tires?
I was going to ask, do you know if they are connected with vocational rehabilitation, if they're working or interested in work? Because that would be one option that I can think of.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, Lisa, call Sherry at Disability Action Center. I'm sure they
Okay.
could probably help you.
I will do that. Thank you.
And Christmas year round could probably help with that as well.
Yeah, I don't know where they get referred to. It's a personal person, so I couldn't refer through my work.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, call Sherry.
Thank you.
We have a mom that's struggling with transportation. She has a newborn infant and she's in a wheelchair. And the trouble is a lot of the transportation that we can find won't allow her to transport her infant with her. And so she's wanted to get a vehicle that could accommodate her. She does not know the process for that, or just if anyone has any general ideas about transportation that would allow her to take her infant with her.
Have you tried to go through CityLink Ring a Ride?
I believe so. I haven't been the one on it. I will write it down though. Ring a Ride. I'm pretty sure they looked into that and there was some kind of barrier.
I
The
would
other
call-
option that I would,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry.
Let's go Donna, let's go
You
Donna and then
go.
Jackie.
Okay.
Donna and then
Okay.
Jackie.
Sorry.
Call Disability Action Center as well. Sherry has unbelievable amount of resources.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
After paratransit, the other option that I was going to say is, oh gosh, you know what, now I've lost my train of thought. So paratransit, I would think would be number one. The other, there's a group out there, it's run by Devin Burdett. Let me look into it and I will send information that does a lot of, it's like a biker organization that helps disabled people. So
Oh,
is
cool.
it daily, like regular transportation that the person needs?
It's fairly frequent. She has several medical appointments. And I mean, she wouldn't necessarily have to have her own vehicle. That was just like an idea that came up of like, maybe we could get her like a vehicle that could accommodate her. But it is a pretty frequent thing. And even for us to get a taxi for her to come to our play groups costs $200. And so
Wow.
it's really, and
Yeah.
she's in town. It's just really outrageous.
The other thing I would just possibly look into is, well, for medical appointments, I don't know if you guys have tried Kootenai. They do have the transportation that they provide to medical appointments if it's a Kootenai related medical provider. Again, the baby is obviously the barrier that all of it. I'm a non-driver in North Idaho, so I understand the battle 100%. But Kootenai does do it, and then senior companions might be an option too. Sometimes they have volunteers that will provide transportation assistance if the person has a disability. So
Okay,
that's all I got so far.
cool. Thank you.
She may also be eligible for transportation through Medicaid. Although I understand those appointments can be tricky as far as the scheduling of them, and it's not the most convenient resource to use. And while navigation can't purchase a vehicle, being able to help adapt that vehicle to her, whatever was needed so she would be able to operate it, that's something we could come in after the vehicle was purchased to help with.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about this group is when somebody throws out a, hey, we're looking for this, or we're struggling with this, and there's a bunch of problem solvers around here. So it's fantastic just to use this group to navigate these situations. On that note, anybody else want to throw out maybe one more that we can pick through as far as a struggle or challenge or search for a resource? Okay. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Well, let's, I didn't hear any pro tips, and knowing that I've got a bunch of seasoned vets here in this group, I would love to definitely end on a pro tip from somebody just in general, just in your experience with working within your agency or in not the nonprofit world, just a pro tip.
My biggest pro tip is to depend on my partners through here like we're doing today. Like really, when I don't know what to do or something with one of our guests, I call the other people that are in the field.
Love that. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that's great that you guys are, leveraging the power of what we have here in this group. So thanks for that share. Okay, we're at 9:56. I think unless anyone has any other final thoughts or notes or updates, we'll go ahead and call it a meeting. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody enjoy your grilled cheese for lunch today.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a great